Welcome to What's the Deal with Sam? Starring Sam Lilly. Join Sam as he discusses a wide variety of topics.
Fan mail.
Now let's start the show.
Thank you.
Wow, holy shit, for once waiting on a topic actually has been beneficial. Okay, so what's the deal with Pokemon Sword and Shield Outrage was what I was gonna talk about. That episode I had recorded, I had it edited, it was ready to go. And that was even kind of late for that news. Basically, in that one, people were pissed off, and it was about this thing where, you know, in Pokemon Sword and Shield, people were kind of mad about, but two things I heard about mostly. One of them, people were mad, it was like, there's no new animations or models for the Pokemon that they're putting in there for old Pokemon, which I don't really give a shit about, because, I mean, like, as long as it's still fun to play and they're doing good things with the gameplay and whatever, I guess I'd be fine with it. It's Pokemon, so they're probably not going to do much with it, but, you know, I at least thought, like, that wasn't really the thing to be mad about. And it was mostly boiling down to that for that aspect. The other thing, though, was the big thing, is that people were mad that they weren't putting in all of the Pokemon that existed up until this point into the game. There was a bunch of Pokemon that were just left out. Which made some people question the idea of, like, that people was kind of saying, like, well, why not just have all new Pokemon then? You know, something I've been saying for fucking years. Wait until they have enough new Pokemon. Well, that takes time. It's not necessarily that hard. It's a simple idea. It's just that it takes them time, and they don't want to spend the time to do that. Because then they can't release a game every fucking year and get all your shit, you know, like that. They can't really keep releasing them yearly and getting them out in this timely fashion that makes them the most money, because that's what they're really concerned about, is getting the most money and making it at least look like they're still trying to give you something good. When really they just want to give you something that's good enough, that's going to not get them shit on, lose the money in the process of trying to make more money swiftly. And then, because like that's kind of the idea. It's like it really is just down to time. It's not like they couldn't have put this stuff in the game, right? Like, to get all the Pokemon in the game, they just would have had to take more time to put them on there. The game file would have been bigger. Maybe they already had the carts ready, but you just put a day one patch out there. Usually, almost any game that comes out now, you have to download update data anyways, especially once they make fixes and everything. You'll have to get those updates online anyway and download things. So the size of the game doesn't really matter as much anymore, because you're not restricted to whatever fits on the physical media anymore. You can just download it online, and there you go. So that really doesn't hold water, and that's why I thought that was bullshit. And that's kind of where that ended. Like, the reason is, like, they just didn't want to spend the time in it because they lose money on the time, and that's more what they're concerned about. And I think that this new expansion thing they've announced now for Sword and Shield, the expansion pass and the expansions they're planning to do, there's like a part 1 and a part 2 going on, which are going to have, granted, they want to put in some new stories and stuff in them too. That's part of it. They want to do some new stuff there. You know, like having extra story and new characters to meet and things you would want to have in your game that's done and would just be part of your game are now things you can have that they finished later, that they decided to add on for $30 and not for free, like it should be as part of your game. Which they've cleverly tried to play off as, well, look, we're doing you a favor here, because, you know, in the past we've had games, you know, like a third installment, like, you know, like Pokemon Platinum, or we've had, you know, things like remakes like Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. We've done those. But now you don't have to get another game. You can just get this expansion on your same game, which is nice if you're someone who, you know, I guess if you're the compulsive Pokemon fan who's going to buy up everything anyways, because then now I don't have to buy another Pokemon game, I just have to buy an expansion pack. But you have to buy the expansion pack for both if you're that kind of Pokemon fan, so it's going to cost you the same amount as if they'd put another game out. If you're someone who was just kind of cleverly waiting for them to put out the version that had all the extra cool bonus stuff on it, you're going to get fucked, because now you can't. You just have to get one of these versions and the extra shit. For extra money. So now we're talking about the full Pokemon experience, even just for one of these games, is $90. You can't get around that, other than saying, well, you don't have to, it's optional. Sure, yeah, it's optional. It's also optional to get the game at all. I could also spend $0, which is probably what I'm going to do, because I just kind of don't give a shit. At this point, I'm just so mad and disinterested at how little they've done and how much more they want for that. But the big thing here is to say that they're also adding in, they've said, like 200 plus Pokemon. Many of them are well-known ones that you've seen in previous games, which means that, yes, they could have put them in the first place. They could have just put them in the game in the first place. Not like, oh, we can't possibly put them in. No, they obviously can. They just needed, more time? And that's even being generous to say that they actually just didn't have the time to do this yet. It's also entirely possible that this was just completely fucking planned so that they knew people were going to want these Pokemon in there, so, well, now we'll just release this later as this. And they didn't cut it out of the game. They can still say, we didn't cut this content to sell back to you later. They just didn't include it. And again, I don't know if that's the case or they just needed the time actually. Maybe they could have just taken the time in the first place and had it all be a game, not a game and a bunch of other shit. But, whatever, either way it sucks. Just to say one way sucks less doesn't really mean it doesn't suck. So, whatever, it sucks. This whole Pokemon thing, the business of Pokemon sucks. I'm sure the games are fine. I'm sure the game is fun enough. But what it's doing is so frustrating to look at this business thing around it, too, and to see how gross that gets. It's not like I hate Pokemon. It's not like I'm just here to shit on Pokemon. I like Pokemon. If I didn't like Pokemon, I'd just be like, whatever, that's stupid, and not even make a video about it. But I want to like a Pokemon game again, and they're making it real hard to be a fan of the franchise when they're doing a bunch of stupid shit to it like this. And the one little thing, I guess people might try to spin this, because I saw this nugget of like, oh, you will be able to get it for free without getting the expansion, which made me be like, oh, maybe that's something then. Maybe there's something to that. It's by trading. It's by trading or using this other thing they're releasing later that I don't know much about, Pokemon Home. I don't know if that's going to be a thing you have to pay for or not either. But basically, if you don't have the expansion, you have to then trade with someone, which again, that's only going to be viable for as long as people are still playing the game, which is a limited time. It's one of those things where it's kind of like, yeah, you can still get all the Pokemon in the old Pokemon games too, in like Red and Blue. You can still get all those Pokemon. You just got to trade with someone else. But it's a lot harder to do now than it was back when that was new and everyone was playing it. And that's still like shit that maybe could have just been in the fucking game. It's stupid. I don't know. I'm really annoyed because it's like, why didn't you just take the time and make the entire game as a singular entire game, rather than here's our base game, here's our DLC content, here's our season pass, here are our microtransactions. There's all these little things you can put in these games that are just being sectioned off. I don't think there's microtransactions in it, I guess, in this. But it's like, it's getting to the point where you can't get a game anymore. You almost, as far as big budget titles go, it's really hard to just get a game that is done. A finished game. And this is a perfect example of it, and it's infuriating just because of how much this just reeks of, hey, we can make more money on Pokemon by putting on this console, we can charge more for console prices, we just leave some Pokemon out, say we can't fit them in there, we can't possibly, and then we have to save some time because we have extra time to actually get those programmed in, and then, yeah, they're going to update it so you can trade them in later. That's like, then they can get the money from the fucking expansion passes. So basically, they're going to make the same money off of it as they would from the same people, I guess. And the only thing that would have been different is if they had released a new one and also an expansion. Would have been the only way they would have made more on that deal. But since they know these people who are crazy and would have gotten all the games anyways, are going to get both expansions, there you go, there's their other 60. Anybody who just has one game and wants to have the whole game now has to pay 90 instead of 60. And that's where they get you. And I guess I just don't want to get got. And if I do end up getting the game, you bet your ass I'm not touching that expansion pass, because I don't give a shit. So, what's the deal with Pokemon Sword and Shield outrage? I think it's pretty fucking justified at this point. What's the deal with saying